Very different.
No one gets back.
It's always a nervous moment just before you start one of these things. But welcome to all of you. Welcome to the second annual AMI Monetary Reform Conference. Big welcome to all of you.
As most of you know, I'm Steve Zarlenga, Director of the American Monetary Institute and co-founder of the Institute, author of the Lost Science of Money book and the refutation of Maker's theory of the origin of money. And you may wonder why I mention that, but it has some importance in the area of monetary theory, because a lot of people still believe in that, most notably the Austrian School of Economics and then many libertarians who take their cue from the Austrian School. It was the first paper that we did with the American Monetary Institute was a refutation, well actually we called it a challenge to Megar's theory of the origin of money. And then they didn't answer it for so many years that we just changed it from challenge to refutation. And what it does is demonstrate the societal rather than a market origin of money. And that is so important in terms of the concept of money and the definition of money. Now, we initiated these conferences last year with the support of AMI's advisors because of the critical direction that events were going into. The Bush administration's foolish, and you could say much worse, war in Iraq is unleashing the dogs of war, leads to other events which are putting us on a track towards nuclear warfare, ultimately. And I'm speaking about, for example, the destruction of Lebanon, the only democracy in the Middle East, and we simply stood by as our ally destroyed it. These are things that are being placed on our hands as Americans that we have to cleanse. And how we're going to do that, we don't know yet. But we're going to have to do that or face centuries of warfare with Islam. I don't think we want to be involved in that kind of thing. So that unleashing of warfare requires action be taken right now to begin correcting the ultimate real source of so many of these crises. And that is the monetary system itself. Now, as I remarked last year, ladies and gentlemen, our civilization is living on borrowed time. Twice in one generation, we avoided all-out nuclear warfare with Russia. The most recent time was 1983, when Russian Colonel Petrov refused to obey orders and did not launch a missile attack against us in response to a mistaken idea that we were launching against them. He got sent to Siberia for his heroic action, and when he's in Siberia, some American foundation advanced him a $1,500 grant for saving the world. So where's the MacArthur Foundation when you need them? Now, the first time that we nearly had nuclear war, according to Robert McNamara, which most of you will remember, but not all, was Jack Kennedy's Secretary of War, or Defense as they hope. And he tells us in the Fog of War documentary that the only thing that saved us from an all-out nuclear exchange with Russia in the 1962 missile crisis, and I remember that day very clearly. I'm sure any of you over 50 remember that day clearly. The only thing that saved us, according to McNamara, was, quote, blind luck. Well, how lucky do you feel with this administration in power? A president who tells us that he's having conversations with God, and he's catering to a group that actually welcomes the idea of Armageddon. Because in their view, then Jesus can come back to earth. But I don't think Jesus is going to be very happy with those warmongering people. I doubt that he'd be pleased with them. So the reason we're living on borrowed time, because we're living on a borrowed money system. We've allowed private bankers the power to lend us our own money system and thereby control our society. Ladies and gentlemen, there's absolutely nothing in their background, their training, or their souls that qualifies them for such power. And look how the system is concentrating the nation's wealth into the hands of corrupt financial elite, the Enrons of the world. You may not have heard last year, after our, it might have been before our conference, Enron, the Enron pension fund holders had sued two of the biggest banks in America, Merrill Lynch and Citibank. And both of those banks settled the suit with the Enron pension plan for over $1 billion because of their complicity in the Enron scam. We must enact the monetary reform that reverses this concentrating process, allows our productive power to be properly used, reform that will put time on the side of justice, moves us back from the brink of nuclear destruction, away from a future dominated by fraud and ugliness, and toward a future of justice and beauty. That's why I'm here, and I'll continue to be here, and I think and hope that your presence indicates something very similar. Now, this is not just about money systems. Ultimately, it's about the misdirection of humanity. This warped system of ours takes technological advances from our best minds and turns them to be used against humanity. It's a kind of societal jujitsu where it's twisting humanity's power against itself. We often focus on the problem, as monetary reformers, of interest payments on debt money. And that is a huge injustice and problem. It's concentrating wealth into fewer and fewer hands, all undeserving. And it pressurizes life in general. I understand, and some of our English friends who are here can fill us in on this, that there are already some groups in England that are calling for the issue of interest-free money by the banks, but still leaving the issuance and control of the money in the hands of the banks. And I say to that, no way that type of thing should be considered. The bigger question is the control over where the money goes, misdirecting humanity into warfare, death, and destruction. Now, how and why does a private money system lead to war? Mainly, it provides a very large motivation for warfare. And here's a real-life example from March 2003. $15 billion is needed to repair levees protecting the city of New Orleans. Public TV documentaries, widely viewed, have warned of this danger. But under a private money system, the government must either go into more debt or raise taxes to get the money. And both of these prove politically impossible. So in August of 2005, the levees fail, thousands die, 400 billion of property damage takes place. Or it works this way. It's March of 2003 again. Under a major war hysteria, purposely designed to rush headlong into war, a Republican administration catering to financiers and other warmongering elements rushes into warfare, and even its Democratic opposition is completely unable to vote against wasting over $250 billion in just 3 years on a losing and clearly immoral war. Our US government debt balloons from under 5 trillion to 9 trillion because of a combination of war expenditures and pernicious tax cuts. The usurers get their risk-free loans to government and the ability to secure interest on their vast wealth. Many reformers still think that the US borrows mainly by giving bonds to the Federal Reserve in exchange for Federal Reserve credits. And I believe that's how World War II was largely financed. And it's still done, but within limits. Now it's mostly done by selling the bonds publicly. If it were all done directly with the Federal Reserve System, most of that interest income that the US paid would be turned back over to the US Treasury, because the Fed does turn over its net earnings to the Treasury, and they can't have that. So with a private money system, the motive for warfare is it forces the government to borrow privately created money. And because it's a question of life and death, it neutralizes the opposition. It's impossible for a congressman or senator to vote against it, except for a very few rare individuals, and we'll have one here to speak to us on Saturday. And remember, it's not just the interest, it's the control. For example, the financiers, they could have thrown their considerable political power behind a drive to build levees, or to provide universal health care, or fund a decent educational system, or farming parity payments. They could have done that. With their control of media, they might still have forced the government into borrowing from them. But what a difference. The people of our nation would have received infrastructure, health care, educational benefits. Even under a pernicious, wasteful, and unjust monetary system, the situation would have improved. And a few of those types were proposing such things, at least before the war started. But that won't do for them. That won't do. They simply will not allow the monetary system to be used to help the country. They didn't really try. They've defined economics as a form of class warfare, where every action is taken to harm their potential political opponents, the people of the country. I think it's actually harmful to work with these oppressors to minimize the bad effects of the system. In my view, it's better to let it run its course and really be in a position then to change things and get this millstone off of humanity's neck. And the preponderance of them really don't want to improve the nation. They want to keep our people in bondage. To me, this refusal to use the money system for good, to use it mainly to harm mankind, is really unforgivable. Christianity teaches us to turn the other cheek. And there are times for that. And one of those times would have been 9/11, considering all the factors that went into it, considering the guilt of our own, of the people that we've allowed to lead us over the decades, and considering that the only way to really strike back after 9/11 was to destroy our own rights and destroy our own reason for existing as America. That would have been a time to turn the other cheek and to make peace. But there are other times when you simply cannot demonstrate a good-naturedness to some of these enemies of humanity. There's a time when you have to face that and do what it takes to stop that. Even Christ used, at one point in his career, violence. Only one point, as far as I know, and that was when he went in to the temple, and that violence was applied against the bankers, the money changers of that day. He went wild and overturned their money tables. Now, the American Monetary Institute, publicly supported charity, were structured like the Red Cross. Dr. Lucienne DeWolf, the co-founder, will be here a bit later today. She and I started in '96 for the independent study of monetary history, theory, and reform. Emphasis on independent. The universities have not been able to make substantial progress in monetary studies. They've confused the concept of money with credit. They're referring to what we call money as money, and then they're referring to credit. They're referring to money as, high-powered money. They're referring to credit as lower-powered money. So that confuses the two when we should be looking at them very distinctly. Part of the problem, economics has degenerated into clandestine religion rather than a science where the market is considered omnipotent. Don't try to overrule the market. It'll destroy your puny laws. It's considered omniscient. The market has input from everybody. No central planner, nobody doing planning can ever hope to get more input than the market has from all its millions of participants. It's omniscient. Do the right thing, the market rewards you. Do the wrong thing, the market punishes you. Beneficent. So you've got omnipotence, beneficence, omniscience. They're describing a God. That's what's being described. One leading professor summed it up for me, and he told me, economics has no good macroeconomic theory. I believe that was the exact quote, or that's close to the exact quote. There's no good economic theory in economics. No good macroeconomic theory.
You were referring to like what we experience today with finance economics?
I'm referring to the whole field at this point. And we will have questions at the end if you like. Now, macroeconomics is supposed to deal with monetary systems. Our research was published in late 2002 in the Lost Science of Money book, and we found a grand ongoing struggle over the control of money systems from at least Aristotle's time. The battle, we found, is fought through language, where definitions serve as the heavy artillery. We found that by misdefining the nature of money, corrupt groups seize control over the money system and then the society itself. We found that the main battle line has always been private control versus public control. We saw that the concept of money that the society had determines whether it will be privately controlled to enrich the few or publicly controlled for the common good. For example, if you define money as wealth, gold or silver, for example, any kind of wealth, then the wealthy will automatically control the monetary system. If you define money as a monetized bank credit, then the banks will control the monetary system. If you define it, as we do, taking our cue from Aristotle, as an abstract social power based in law, then the society has a chance to control the money system for the good of all. Money's nature should dictate monetary reform. We found that the modern attack on government was launched to keep the monetary power in the private Bank of England. My talk on Saturday will focus on that. And we noted our inheritance in defining money from past genius. From Aristotle, money exists not by nature, but by law. He's telling us it's not a commodity that comes out of the ground or out of a farm. It's an abstract legal power. Plato agreed completely. A money token for purposes of exchange. Julius Paulus agreed. This device, being officially promulgated, circulated, maintained its purchasing power not so much from its substance as from its quantity. He's from about 300 AD Rome. Then a long darkness. From Anglican Bishop Berkeley,
quote, "Whether the true idea of money as such be not altogether that of a ticket or counter." From Locke and Franklin, who viewed money as a pledge for wealth rather than wealth itself. From George Knapp, our test that the money is accepted in payments made to the state's offices. And from Del Mar, we got a truly sufficient definition. Quote, "What is commonly understood as money has always consisted tangibly of a number of pieces of some material marked by public authority and named or understood in the laws or customs. That its palpable characteristic was its mark of authority, its essential characteristic, the possession of value defined by law, and its function, the legal power to pay debts and taxes, and the mechanical power to facilitate the exchange of other objects possessing value." Now, you may know Del Mar was perhaps the greatest monetary historian of all time. Those who look at money historically generally come to that type of conclusion about money. Those who look at money theoretically have arrived at other definitions. We accept all of those concepts and we add money's essence, apart from whatever is used to signify it, is an abstract social power embodied in law as an unconditional means of payment. And it's a societal or constitutional concept of money. Our method is to focus on historical case studies as the facts on which theories have to be based. We pay attention to the morality of money, not just the mechanics, because the money system is society's greatest dispenser of justice or injustice. A good one will help the creation of values for living, and it'll function fairly, not giving more to one group and less to another. A bad or unjust one obstructs those value creations, gives special privileges to some, disadvantages to others, and it leads to social strife, eventually warfare, and 1,000 unforeseen consequences, physical and spiritual. And we take our cue from the Archbishop of Canterbury's 1942 call for the nationalization of the Bank of England. It's the middle of World War II, bombs are falling, hundreds of thousands are dying, and the Archbishop of Canterbury gives a speech. He calls for, in British understatement terms, he calls for the nationalization of the Bank of England. One of the first things they do at the end of World War II, 1946, is nationalize the Bank of England. What he said in 1942 is, what should be the servant has become the master. Our intention is that money be the servant of mankind, not the master. And that's the reason monetary reform is such paramount importance. When held privately, it gives too much power into private hands, creates a plutocracy, the rule by wealth. We know which forms monetary reform should take. Any serious monetary reformer comes up with similar conclusions. We have to move away from private control and special privilege toward public control through government, away from commodity money notions toward legal systems, away from monetizing private credits, loaning them into circulation and interest, and towards money directly issued interest-free by government and spent in circulation to promote the general welfare. Since we also know that there is a lot of paid disinformation is a part of the monetary reform landscape, it's our duty to keep a close watch over that and what we're doing and our part in this movement. For us, the bigger challenge is not what to do, but how to do it, because we don't have the experience yet in the area of political activity. And we're gaining it a little at a time, just since last year, and we'll report on that. I'm hoping that this conference is going to make a large stride in that area on Saturday when Dr. Ed Chambers speaks to us. He's the president of the Industrial Areas Foundation, and they specialize in building organizations and what to do and how to increase membership and build an independent organization. Now, report on our activities since last year. We continue only as long as public support comes in. Now, that means we're always in fundraising mode. And we will do that here too. We will try to raise as much money from you as we can. Don't take it personally, please. Over the past 2 years, I've held meetings in 28 cities. I will continue that speaking schedule to help spread monetary awareness and build a politically active movement, so that when the nation's capital is ready, there will exist substantial informed support in many cities and states. There are different ways to grow that we're attempting to utilize. One of them that I pointed out last year, which is very appealing because it doesn't seem, in theory, it doesn't take a lot of money. That is that everybody, we're just a handful of people here, but if everybody over the next year brings in one new person, just one, over a 12-month period, we double. And if that doubles again, well, our idea was to start with 12 chapters this year, and it looks like we'll have had about 10 chapter meetings already, and another couple by the end of the year. Using that system of people bringing in others, we could get to 100 and almost 200 chapters by the year 2010. 200 chapters puts monetary reform on the map. You saw that other large room as you came in this direction. You walked by it. This room opens up into that. There's plenty of room here. So we could have held this conference at the hotel. We had made a commitment to come here, and I wanted to do that. I wanted you to see what, that it's not a question of our filling a room at the hotel and therefore relax. It's a question of there's a lot more work to do. And I cannot do it alone. I cannot, as one person, bring in that many people. Everyone has to see it as part of their responsibility or duty or a way of making this work. This is not about me, it's not about the AMI, it's about monetary reform. And we're here together for that purpose. Doing that does require a bit of financial support. And we're going to have a fundraising drive in your kit. We have a list of what we would do with funds. It's in the green folder that you have. Take a look at it. We have a subscription, a renewal form for being a sustaining member of the American Monetary Institute, and various other ways that you can help. Now, last year, one of the best suggestions we had at the conference was from Professor Glenn Martin, who, after we introduced the American Monetary Act, he suggested that we take the act and put it within a pamphlet that explains it. And that is this piece, which is in your green kit. And what we do here with a preface as to why we need monetary reform, then the act is printed on the right side of the page. The explanation of it is on the left side, and then after each title of the act, we have a background of why. And then on the back cover, we have a diagram of how the Federal Reserve System presently creates money, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. in their brochure, Modern Money Mechanics, which came out in 6 or 7 printings between 1961 and 1994, would take it as the authoritative description. This is Chris Syak, correct? He's professionally recording this conference for audio recording, and it will be webcast. We found a professor here in Columbia who's going to show us how to get this onto the web. We'll webcast it every 2 or 3 months so that this will continue to resound out there. Another thing that we are doing is we began with several of our advisors and speakers. We're starting a speakers bureau for monetary reform talks, where we will provide speakers at a cost, and the speakers' fees range anywhere from $1,000 to $8,000 plus travel expenses. But these people will be available to go to any part of the country to give talks on monetary reform, on money. Sometime during the year, we'll begin a remainder trust system where donations can be made to the Institute in a particular type of trust arrangement. The American Monetary Act is one part of legislation that we're working on. Last December, in speaking with one of our congressional representatives who understood the American Monetary Act, the American Monetary Act is a very comprehensive act. And the representative asked me, what about some small steps that we might be able to take right away? The American Monetary Act, we understand, has its best chance during a really serious situation. This is Mr. James Gibbs Stewart of England. He is known as the grandfather of monetary reform in England. And we're very fortunate to have him here. He'll be speaking tomorrow morning. So the congressperson asked for small steps. Give me some small steps. And I couldn't think of any. Because as soon as you're dealing with the monetary system, you're dealing with big steps. And the Fed knows that. But then they made a mistake. They said, we're going to stop publishing M3. And they just did this out of the blue, and the investment community said, what's going on? Why are they going to say, what are they going to be hiding? And it gave us the opening, and it gave me an idea. All right, we'll put forward a small monetary transparency act, because Ralph Nader had sent a letter to the new Fed chairman, Ben Bernanke, saying we need more monetary transparency. Ralph Nader is getting interested in monetary reform in a way. Now, I had a full day meeting with Ralph, almost a full day meeting with Ralph back in April of last year when he was in Buffalo. I finally managed, after trying to see Ralph Nader for years, we managed to get together with him. And out of that half day I spent with him, or 3/4 of a day, I managed to get 15-20 minutes to really talk about monetary reform. He understands everything, but is not sure of his own place in it at this point. Anyway, he wrote the letter to Bernanke, we need more monetary transparency. All right, then the Fed's going in the other direction. They said we're going to stop publishing M3. So I thought, okay, well, let's tell them that they will publish M3. And by the way, we want these other numbers. And of course, it's the other numbers that we really want. One of them is, how much seigniorage does the private banking community get out of this privilege to create money every year? How much seigniorage do they get when they're creating money? When the Fed itself creates money, they don't get that interest. That gets turned over to the government, goes into the Treasury. the net amount of it. They do have very heavy expenses, and nobody knows how heavy for sure because it's not really audited. Nader called for it to be audited. So we threw that into this monetary transparency. There will be an audit every, I think we put it in every 4th year. What part of monetary creation goes into real estate investing compared to education, compared to healthcare, compared to government infrastructure expenditures? This act's been called deceptively innocuous. But any one of these numbers, any one of these statistics is a standalone critique of the whole Federal Reserve system. So I do expect that this is going to be introduced as an act, and we're working with the people on it right now in the House of Representatives, and after this next election, we'll have someone in the Senate that we know, and I think we'll support this based on the way he used to question Alan Greenspan whenever he came before Congress. That's Congressman Bernie Sanders. He's going to become Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. And of course, we're working with Dennis Kucinich on the Monetary Transparency Act as closely as we can. That's been sidetracked a little bit because of all the war activities. We're putting together a book of speeches that I've been giving for the last 2 years, which will include the Monetary Reform Act, will include the Monetary Transparency Act, and be a larger pamphlet framing all of that. We are going to be working on visual presentations, last but not least. As I was doing the research for The Lost Science of Money book over 12 years of time, I had already experience in publishing and knew that there's no way in terms of income that you're going to get from writing a book or doing research. There's no way you're even going to get to minimum wage. I mean, minimum wage would be terrific compared to what you make in publishing. And I also realized through that time, because I published 20 books, that the only way that it turns into serious income is through visual presentations. So we've always had the idea to make a monetary reform documentary. And several scripts are in process of being written over the last 3 years. And I'm working with a professional in that area who's been on public television for about 20 years. He's an old friend. We used to work for the same company. And he told me it's basically $300,000 per hour of quality documentary. And he suggested that we do this in 6 1.5-hour segments. So that's 3 hours times 300,000, about $900,000. And we're in shape with a high quality documentary on the top level. So that sounds like a lot, but $900,000 it's a pittance in the scheme of things. It's nothing. It should be available in this society. We simply have to find it, and we will find it. I hope I can do that though before while I still have some hair left. But we'll do it. Now, I want to say thanks to several people, and first, some of our advisors are here. Bob Blaine, Professor Bob Blaine, just in the back. It's been a very big help. Ken Bonsack, the founder of Sovereignty. Ben Giesen is coming in later today. Dick Distelhorst is here. And I especially want to point out that Ken Bonsack has done a lot of groundbreaking work with something called the sovereignty proposal over the years. And this has helped to bring people into these meetings. 2 women deserve special thanks. First, the co-founder of the Institute. There she is. You're just in time. Dr. Lucienne DeWolf, who was the co-founder of the Institute with me in 1996. And without her, the research would not have been done. The book would not have been written, the conferences wouldn't exist. And the other person is my mother, Loretta Zarlenga, whose support has been invaluable. And unfortunately, she passed away just a month ago at age 93. The help of those 2 women made it possible for me to concentrate on the monetary question, and will make possible whatever may follow from this. Our speakers deserve special thanks. You may not realize this. Usually speakers get honorariums. And one new speaker who was coming in, an important one too, really very, I'm thinking, is going to really help us a lot. After he agreed to come in, he said, all right, what's the honorarium? And I said, honorarium? Yeah, we would like to do that. But in fact, most of our speakers end up making the registration donation just the same way that the attendees do. And he said, what? I never heard of such a thing. And so I told him, well, you heard about it now. So our speakers are unusual people. They're really a very rare breed. And they're here to help make this happen. They're here because they know how important monetary reform is. And they know that together we can make progress on this and achieve this goal. I have to thank Richard Kendall, who came in early and helped. We wouldn't be ready here if we didn't have Richard's help. Came in with his girlfriend Micah, and put all these kits together for us and helped us with the logistics of the place. And finally, I want to thank all of you who are in attendance. I strongly acknowledge your attendance here as a major part of this help. And let's develop ways to work together to hand a better America and a better world to the next generation. We're not so far doing that compared to what was handed to us by our parents. Now, that's a kind of sacred duty to the next generation. That's how mankind makes progress. That's the measure of it. But while we do that, while we perform or fulfill that sacred duty, we should have a good time doing it too. And we will try to do that as much as possible. Ground rules for the conference. We know these things. We remain polite even if a discussion gets intense. We'll have chairmen of different sessions who will keep the speakers on schedule concerning times. Please keep your questions to the point and on the subject matter. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something here, but we'll have plenty of time to get back to it. So we're